Hey guys, Dozer here. I'm back with the next video in my 50 BMG series. What we're going to be talking about today is the U.S. military contract M903 SLAP and M962 SLAP tracer, specifically what you as the collector need to look for to make sure that you are receiving genuine factory loaded SLAP rounds. Now there are a number of criteria that must be met, and keep in mind that all of these criteria must be met in order to ensure that you are receiving a genuine factory-loaded 50 BMG M903 SLAP or M962 SLAP tracer round. The first and easiest criteria to determine if you're dealing with genuine M903 SLAP or M962 SLAP tracers is going to be the Sabo color. U.S. military contract M903 SLAP is always going to have kind of an amber Sabo. Now, it can be a little different hue depending on the conditions it was stored in and the age, but it's always going to look kind of golden. The M962 SLAP tracer, it is always going to have a red Sabo. After you verify that the case neck crimp is correct for a factory SLAP or SLAP tracer load, the next thing you want to look for is also the trickiest and can be the most subtle, and that is evidence that it has been linked in the past. Generally, these are sold as single rounds, but they left the factory for military contract all linked for the M2 Browning machine gun. So you're going to look for different bands of varying luster where they have been delinked at some point in the past. You're going to look for scuffs, scratch marks. Now this one can be a little bit tricky, and you're not always going to find real good evidence that they have been linked in the past. As you could see with this one that I have here, this is a genuine first run M903 SLAP, but it's really hard to tell that it used to be linked because this is over 40 years old and it was probably delinked a long time ago, so it's kind of oxidized, so you can't really tell too well without really closely looking that it had link marks on it. The next thing you're going to want to look at when determining if your SLAP rounds are legitimate is the case neck annealing. Military contract specifies that all loaded ammunition must show visible proof of the annealing process. So what that's going to look like is discoloration between the case neck and the case body. In the case of most 50 BMG loads, and the 903 SLAP and 962 SLAP tracer are no different, you're going to see this kind of strange, dirty appearance to the case necks. Now, the amount of dirty appearance you get is going to vary from batch to batch, and it's also going to depend on how the ammunition was stored over the years. But if you have a case that is completely uniform and shiny, that's a good indication that at the very least that round has been tumbled and cleaned, or at the very worst is a counterfeit or hand-loaded M903 SLAP or M962 SLAP tracer round. So you want to make sure it looks a little bit crusty there. That is actually a very good thing. The final and most important criteria that you're going to want to look at when determining if your SLAP and SLAP tracers are legitimate is the head stamps. Now keep in mind, Winchester was the only manufacturer of the M903 SLAP and M962 SLAP tracers for U.S. military contract. So all head stamps are going to have WCC on them. WCC stands for Western Cartridge Company, which is a holdover from when Winchester bought out the Western Cartridge Company in the 1930s. They kept the WCC head stamp as a holdover from that merger. So with SLAP rounds, you have a couple different head stamp variations depending on when they were produced. The very first ever U.S. military contract run of SLAP rounds in the early 80s just said WCC SLAP. After that, they transitioned to a head stamp that was WCC SLAP with a 2-digit year in the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock positions. Sometimes you will see WCC SLAP 85. The one I have here for an example today is WCC SLAP 91. So this is Desert Storm era production. Finally, when they transitioned away from that, they just went to their standard WCC followed by the 2-digit year head stamp. So this one that I have is a WCC 06. As with all WCC loadings, you want to make sure that the primer pocket has red primer sealant on it. Depending on which batch it was from and the age of the cartridge, the red sealant may be slightly more faint, and others it might be really globbed on, but it's always going to be there to some degree. So to recap, the things that you need to look at to make sure that you're getting genuine M903 slap or M962 slap tracers: verify the Sabo color, verify the crimp, look at evidence that it has been linked at some point in the past, look for the case neck annealing and that kind of dirty, crusty appearance, and then most importantly, look at the head stamp and keep in mind the different head stamp variations that we went over, and of course, look for the red primer sealant. We'll catch you next time.